So, this happened to me and my best friend when we were in high school. We live in the lovely state of Hawaii, and we would often go to the beach, a short walk from my house when she'd stay over. To give a brief description of us, we're both fair-skinned females, blondish brown hair, and have light-colored eyes. We both look pretty similar except she has corkscrew curls. People would ask us if we were sisters while we were growing up. This is slightly important for later on in the story. Anyway, a good portion of where I grew up was around Ava Beach. If anyone knows where that is or has heard of it, you know where I'm talking about. For the rest, it's an area where homeless people, druggies, buyers and sellers tend to hang out. And the beach is actually quite rocky. If you head up the beach though, there are fewer rocks and fewer people. That nicer area of the beach is the part that's closer to my house and where we usually would go. Kind of like a secret beach location, but not really if you lived in that particular area. So one weekend my friend, let's name her Jessica, and I were hanging out at my house. We decided to go hang out at the beach and tan, do whatever. This particular day though, we had decided that instead of walking to the slightly less rocky beach, we'd go to the secret beach near White Plains. No rocks, not too many people, nicer waves, more beach. It was about a 10 to 15 minute drive since it was like the next neighborhood next to Uva. And we thought, what the hell, why not? We get to the beach, there are not a lot of people, it's a lovely day, and we put our stuff down and just start chilling. Then it happens. Jessica and I had been there maybe all of 20 minutes when we're approached by a man that was maybe about 30-40 years old, average build, dark hair, and a bit of facial hair if I remember. There was nothing about him at first to give us any creepy vibes. He was local. And it's not uncommon for strangers to come up to each other at the beach and talk story, or ask something. So we thought nothing of it when the man introduced himself as Dave. However, after his polite intro, he then proceeded to tell us that he was a journalist/reporter for a well-known local newspaper, and he was doing an article about tourists and their thoughts on less-known beaches. Jessica and I immediately gave each other that side look like, something isn't right here. That sentence alone made us suspicious for a couple of reasons. One, he had no camera, notebook, pen, or anything to indicate he was taking notes for his story. He was also just wearing swim trunks, not a really professional appearance. 2. There was a report on the news around that time that young girls were being conned into modeling agencies and being approached by men on beaches, the mall, anywhere where tourists or locals were known to frequent, and being kidnapped into human trafficking. 3. He had not given us any proof that he, in fact, worked at the said newspaper or that his name really was Dave, like a business card. Because of this, we decided we weren't going to trust anything this guy said. I'd also like to note that while we were in a secret spot, it wasn't a spot that a lot of tourists really know about or even go to. They like to go to the beaches near their hotels or the ones they've read or heard about, and wouldn't drive all the way there. Really, it's where locals hang out. This is kind of where our descriptions come into play because I was born and raised there even if I didn't look like it, and so was Jessica. It would be pretty easy to mistake us for dumb tourists. Anyway, so Dave says he's writing this story right. He then asks us what our names are and is starting to look at me and Jessica up and down, almost like he's memorizing what we look like and sizing us up. Never in my life had I ever gotten such major stranger danger vibes from a guy and proceed to give him some fake name off the top of my head. Jessica follows suit. This is where it starts to get even creepier and uncomfortable. After a brief pause and more intense staring, Dave proceeds to say, "Well, are you girls hungry? I got food in my BBQ at my van if you wanted to hang out." Yes, this dude said van and points to his open green-colored kidnapper van. Instantly, the red flags are flapping in the hurricane-like winds of our instincts. Why in the world would two 15-16-year-olds want to hang out with a middle-aged man? It was almost like the teen version of asking you if you wanted candy. You just had to hop into the van. Dave wasn't even asking us questions about the beach and how we heard about it. In fact, it was like he completely forgot the reason why he was there and just really wanted us to go to his van with him. We told him we were okay and thanks for the offer, hoping he would leave us alone. Dave wasn't going to take no for an answer. He kind of got a look on his face like he was surprised we had turned him down, and then got more forceful. "Are you sure? I got chicken and some drinks, it'll be fun," he said, hoping we'd cave if he kept being persistent. Again, we told him no, and he decided to leave us alone for now, only to walk to his van, sit and watch us lying on the beach. It was really unsettling to have him stare at us like that, like he was waiting to see what we would do. More so because we were two young girls, in bikinis by ourselves in a somewhat closed-off beach. There was a group of guys that weren't too far from us, military guys, pretty easy to tell, and Jessica and I decided to go and talk to them. Plus, we felt a little safer knowing that we weren't alone on the beach with this guy. So we walked up to the group and we asked them if Dave had come over to them and had asked them any questions regarding his story. The guys looked at us, then looked at Dave and said that he hadn't approached them at all, and that they'd been on the beach for a while before us. Jessica and I took this as a sign that it was time to pack up and go home. Dave was still watching us. He had seen our interaction with the dudes, as we came back and gathered up our things and walked off towards my truck. We didn't immediately walk straight to my truck, and we kind of walked past it to see if Dave had packed up his stuff to start following us. I was parked along the road and had the trees blocking the beach on one side, so if anyone decided they wanted to snatch you up off the road, you couldn't see it from the beach. Luckily, we didn't see him and we left, checking my rearview mirror in case I saw that suspicious van follow me back to my house. On the way back, Jessica asked me if I had gotten that gut feeling the same time he had said he was working for the newspaper. I said I did, and we both told each other the exact same things that made us feel that way. It was almost like we had read each other's minds and were seeing the exact same thing. Really eerie. I think what made the experience all the more unnerving was that he seemed to be looking for specific targets. He hadn't asked the guys anything, so he was definitely looking for girls. Who knows? Maybe he could have been a human trafficker and was trying to get either one or both of us into that van. I've never been back to that particular area of White Plains since. I almost wonder what would have happened if that group of guys wasn't there or if we hadn't listened to our gut. I have been debating on posting this, not because I have been scared, but simply because this is my first post since joining Reddit. Please forgive my writing, as sometimes my wording and punctuation could be better. I'll start off by explaining the area so you can get a good picture of where this occurred. We lived in a small neighborhood. All of the surrounding streets dead end into a half-circle park. Behind the park are some woods and a railroad track. When we were younger, we all played in the front part of the woods. We never ventured too far back. This was our play area for years. Never had an issue or scare. This area was a pretty and well-lit wooded area. Anyhow, one day my brother Jimmy, my best friend Sarah, and my brother's best friend Ian were all building a dam in the middle of the small creek that ran through the park and the woods. The boys decided they were going to head back to Ian's house for some snacks. Sarah and I said we would stay and finish our camp area. As we are moving rocks around, I get a very odd feeling come over me. A strange feeling that we are being watched. I immediately think it's the boys trying to scare us and just continue with what we are doing. Sarah and I load up some big rocks and head back to the creek and put them down at the dam. I get that feeling again, and as I stand up, I see something straight in front of me about 30 feet away. I can't clearly make out what it is yet because it is behind a bush, but I do see that it is a pattern of red and blue. I know that's nothing the boys had on, so at this point I am focusing on trying to figure out what it is. As I am scanning up the bush, I start to realize it is a clown. I cannot believe it, my heart started pounding immediately. The clown and my eyes lock. He is wearing a blue-red hat with a reverse pattern red-blue jumpsuit. I grab Sarah's shirt and immediately pull her upright, and she notices the man right away. He is smiling with a full face of makeup and has a huge knife. We both say nothing and start running as fast as our legs can take us. He begins to follow. We can hear twigs snapping and ground crunching, but we are booking it. We run through the front of the woods, through the side of the park, and up our dead-end street. Ian and Jimmy are 2 houses up from the end and see us running and are screaming what is going on. While running past, we scream a clown and they start laughing. We are still running, screaming for our lives, and finally make it to the middle of the street where Sarah's dad Danny is now running out the front door because he hears us screaming. We meet Danny right at the beginning of the neighbor's house, and we are trying to explain what we saw, and he says, "Girls, stop it now, this is ridiculous, what are you talking about?" We try to catch our breath. By this time, Jimmy and Ian have caught up to us. We are crying and pointing and telling Danny again that we saw a clown and knife. Jimmy and Ian are laughing, and Danny is asking if they played a prank on us. About this time, an old yellow Pinto type of car comes from the dead end at the park and pulls right up next to the sidewalk of the yard we are in. Sure enough, plain as day, it's the clown, no hat this time, but knife in hand and telling us to come here. Danny starts shoving us all toward the house, and he himself is scared and running now. The car drives off down the street. We get inside and Danny calls the police. We had to give statements and the police patrolled the neighborhood and the park for a few weeks. We were never allowed to go in the park again, and a few months after that the city started to clear out the woods. Cut down many trees and made a walking area that you could see through all the way to the train tracks. My friend and I used to talk about this many times up until her death. No one would believe us had they not seen it as well. It was just so scary. I think they only got to see him because whoever it was had to go down the dead-end street to leave the neighborhood. Either way, this man was not afraid of us, nor the small group of people that gathered from our screaming. He very bravely stopped right in front of us, as her father tried to comfort us and calm us down, all while flashing his knife. We are lucky to be alive, I feel. Had it just been one of us left in the woods, which has sometimes occurred, I don't think there would have been a group of 4 of us any longer. Sarah's dad stopped drinking that day. We all have a fear of clowns. Today, something unsettling happened that has been on my mind all day and evening. I took my 5-year-old son and 3-month-old daughter to the playground to meet a friend and her daughter. The playground, atypical equipment, a large parking lot, and a spacious grassy area with trees surrounding it. On the other side of the trees was a development project. The school's location is in a pretty rural area with winding roads and random buildings. I never really thought about or noticed this until today. Upon arriving at the park, we met up with my friend, another mom whom we know was there with her 2 girls. The only other people present were a dad with a little girl, and a boy who appeared to be somewhere between 10-12 years old. The moms were sitting, chatting and playing with my adorable daughter, having a good time. The kids were playing together and everything seemed fine. Eventually, all the kids from our group wandered off through the playground to do their own thing. The seesaws were in a shady area, next to a big stretch of grass, and then the trees with the semi-developed area behind them. My son wanted to seesaw, but nobody wanted to do it with him. I got up to help him, and the 10-ish-year-old boy came over and said, "Hi, do you want me to play with him?" It was a bit strange that he asked me and not my son, but I said, "Sure, bud, go ahead." So he got on the other side and started seesawing with him. His demeanor was odd. He didn't smile. His voice was completely flat, and he didn't say a word to my son. My son was oblivious and chatting away. After a few minutes, I started walking back to my bench and I heard the boy start talking with my son. Maybe he's shy around grown-ups, I thought. I sat down and began chatting with my friends. The dad walked near us, probably heading to his car, and I said, "Hey, it was really sweet for your son to offer to play with mine," smiling at him. He looked at me and said, "He's not my son. I don't know who he is." He walked over and asked if I wanted him to play with the daughter's name and then just kind of followed us around until you guys got here. He chuckled as if to say, "Weird, right?" and shook his head. I got a very uneasy feeling in my stomach and looked over to the seesaws. They were gone. I jumped up, handed my daughter to my friend, and ran in that direction, yelling my son's name. I saw them walking almost to the trees. The trees were not close. I'd guess a football field or so away from the play area. I had this awful feeling and ran as fast as I could, yelling my son's name. He turned around trying to walk to me, and the little boy grabbed his arm trying to pull him toward the trees. My son got upset and started saying, "Hey, let go of me." Usually this quality about my son brings me trouble, but he does not like to be grabbed, pushed, or pulled. He has ADHD, so when he gets frustrated, it usually comes out in aggressive ways. I was so thankful for this today. He started punching the boy and headbutting him like a little crazy person. The boy let go as I got to them and ran to the trees. My friends finally realized something was going on, so they stood at the edge of the play area, looking confused. My son was crying and I was shaking. I don't know what the heck just happened. I asked my son where he was going and he said his friend wanted to take him to see Ryan from Ryan's Toy Reviews, his favorite YouTube channel. He talks about it non-stop. He told the boy about Ryan and apparently the boy told him that he knew where Ryan lived and asked if my son wanted to go visit him and play. So of course, my son said yes. I don't understand why the boy would lie to my son, why he wanted him to go into the woods, why he was so weird. Maybe it was innocent, but I don't think it was. This chilling tale unfolded a few years ago, a cautionary story of meeting a seemingly harmless guy named Matt. After graduating college, I encountered Matt at a bar through my friend Kevin. Accepting a dinner invitation, the evening turned strange when Matt took me to his house, an overwhelming cat-infested dwelling. Left alone with his mom, she oddly hinted at our future connection, despite knowing me for a mere 10 minutes. Despite the uneasy feeling, the night continued at a bar. Following dinner, I notified Matt that I didn't feel a spark and suggested friendship. The response was alarming. 70 missed calls, numerous messages, and pleas for a second chance. Blocking him didn't deter his pursuit. Weeks later, a mysterious text inquiring about a blue truck began a series of unsettling messages, probing into my daily activities. The harassment intensified, with Matt eluding any attempts to locate him. Police couldn't intervene unless physical harm occurred. The situation escalated when Matt appeared at my door on Christmas Eve, bearing a card and vodka. The new year brought another alarming incident as he attempted to find me, resulting in a drunk driving accident. Matt's arrest revealed his pill problem and outstanding charges. In the end, Matt faced the consequences of his actions, landing in jail. This serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of meeting strangers, even seemingly harmless ones.